Cantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Don't Shoot Your Mule by Beth Duke, narrated by Amy Mcfadden and Chris Abernathy. My dearest Delaney, when you were 8 years old, a friend told me, "As long as your great-granddaughter walks this earth, you will be here. She is so much like you." It was the greatest compliment of my life. I hope you have learned from me as much as I have from you. May God bless you in every way. Remember always how very much I love you. Mama D. Tears in a Bottle. Delaney, age 11 and a half, 2011. Mama D gave me an antique pink glass perfume bottle with a rhinestone stopper when I was a little girl. She filled it with honeysuckle cologne, using the teeniest funnel in the world. I put honeysuckle on my wrists every day of first grade, and remember thinking that Michael Fulmer liked me better because I smelled good. We held hands on the playground when no one was looking. By second grade, I was receiving marriage proposals from Michael's cousin Gary, even though I was out of honeysuckle. Mama D said I was beautiful, but that was not the only reason for boys to like me. She told me, "Delaney, you are smart and funny, and you have the kindest heart in the world. Everyone loves you almost as much as I do." Today I was using the bottle for the most important reason I could imagine. After the grown-ups got through hugging and telling me that Mama D was in a better place, and she was very proud of me, and that I look like her, the bottle and I were going to the upstairs bathroom at church. It was in my Hello Kitty purse all through the service, and I kept taking it out and turning it over in my hands. Mom didn't say anything, like she usually does when I play with stuff during the sermon. She kept her arm around Daddy and left me alone. After Brother Roy finally stopped talking, and we sang every single verse of How Great Thou Art, my great-aunt Sarah Ann was the first person to come up to me. Her charm bracelet got tangled in my hair, but she didn't notice. "Delaney," she said, "your great-grandmother thought you were the most lovely thing she had ever laid eyes on. She still does. She is in heaven watching over you." I didn't know if that was true. I felt really sick, and my dress was too tight. I only wanted to escape all the people who were trying to make me feel better. I did not want to feel better. The bathroom had old pink tiles, and it was always cold in there. The ladies from the church kept flowers next to the sink. They were purple today, and I thought they looked cheap and ugly. Mama D would have thought the same thing. I opened the stall door as quietly as I could and prayed that no one would come looking for me. I knew Mom and Daddy would be standing in line talking to everyone for a while. I flipped the little wire to pop the bottle open and held it next to my nose. Then I cried. I let all my tears fill it up, back and forth between my eyes. One tear at a time, I was able to catch enough to come to the very top. I patted the rhinestone stopper into place and wrapped the pink glass in toilet paper. This is how I would keep the worst day of my life with me, in a tiny secret bottle. I promised Mama D, "I will always think of you and try to make you proud of me. I will hear your voice telling me right from wrong. I will be the biggest part of you left behind." I heard the bathroom door whoosh open and spotted Katie Jackson's black high heels in front of the sink. She was 13, and her parents let her wear tons of makeup and have a Facebook, something Mom would not even talk about. I tried to be very still as she primped and fluffed her brown with pink streaks hair. It was blonde 2 weeks ago. The last thing I wanted to do was have a conversation with Katie, so, naturally, she saw my shoes and knocked on my stall door. "Are you all right, Delaney?" Nice to know she paid attention to my stupid-looking black patent flats. Even worse, Mom made me wear itchy stockings with them. "I'm fine, thank you." I stepped into her cloud of Britney Spears perfume, tugging on the front of my dark green dress. My fingers went unconsciously to the little rhinestone brooch I had near my left shoulder. It was Mama D's. "Are there still lots of people here?" "Most of them have gone on to your great-grandmother's house, I think." Katie pulled a tube of Great Lash from her coach bag and flicked her lashes twice in the mirror. "I will walk down with you. I know you have been through a lot today." The next thing I knew, I had a black lace-covered arm tightly squeezing my shoulders, propelling me toward the hall. I wanted to hit her so bad. I bent over to brush something off my knee so I could break away. "Did you know my great-grandmother, Katie?" I asked, tilting my head to one side. I already knew the answer. "I never met her, Delaney, but I am sure she was a nice lady." A nice lady. She was, Katie, but much more than that. She was everything to me. I could talk to her about anything. She believed in me like no one else does. She had more taste and style in her little finger than all the people in this church combined. And to be honest, she would probably tell me that you are the kind of girl who wears too much makeup, and I should not hang around with you. Katie froze. I waited 30 seconds for her to form a response, then headed for the stairs alone. I only felt a tiny bit bad about slapping Katie with words instead of my palm. I hated pretty much everyone that day, and only wanted to be alone in my room at home. I decided to tell Mom I had a stomachache so I could escape the 15-course meal that would be waiting on Mama D's dining room table. When someone dies in the South, every neighbor within 20 miles experiences a casserole reflex. You could bet $1 million there would be banana pudding, too. I was hurrying so fast I missed the last step and stumbled a little right into the shoulder of Katie's brother Chris. He was standing in the hall reading posters. His hands were jammed into the pockets of a dark blue hoodie. Katie was a real pain, but Chris was the cutest boy I had seen in my life. I'd spent over a year watching the back of his head from our pew on Sundays. He did not know I existed, and it was embarrassing to introduce myself by collision. Would this day ever end? Either Chris did not feel my bowling ball head smack him, or he was too nice, or shy, or whatever, to turn my way. He kept studying the poster for some Christian band that would be playing in Gadsden, so I could exit gracefully. As if. Mom and Daddy were standing with Lily and Millard, the only black people in the building. They had their own church a few miles away, but would not have missed being there for my daddy today. Even though Lily was old, I was taller than her. It was awkward when she put her arms around me because I was used to grown-ups reaching down. It felt really good, though. Lily was one of the nicest people in my life. She's kind of like a sister to my granddaddy and aunt to my dad. "Are y'all going to the graveyard?" Lily asked Daddy, stroking the back of my head. "No, we're heading straight for her condo. We'll go over there later. I'm just not up for it right now." Lily smiled at Daddy with the warmth of 1,000 fireplaces in winter. "I understand, Tommy. We will see y'all there." Mom grabbed my hand, and we started down the endless steps in front of First Baptist. The sun was blinding. It seemed so wrong for it to shine today. If I had my way about it, the skies would be cloudy and gray, without a single bird singing. As we were pulling out of our parking space, Chris Jackson ran up to Daddy's window and tapped it. Daddy rolled it down. "I think this fell out of your daughter's purse," he said, handing over a wad of toilet tissue. Daddy nodded and said, "Thank you, Chris." Without a word, he passed the tiny bundle over his seat back to me. Inside was my perfume bottle, unbroken and still full. It must have fallen out when I plowed my graceful way into Chris's back. Neither Mom or Daddy even looked to see what I had, as though lost wads of toilet paper were returned as precious treasure every day. I tucked it under my wallet, determined to hide it safely in my underwear drawer the minute we got home. It took about 15 minutes to get to her place. The car was completely silent all the way, with Mom staring out her window and Daddy concentrating on driving. I reached into my Hello Kitty bag 5 times to make sure the bottle was still there. I wanted to scream when we drove up, because there were at least 20 cars parked in front of Mama D's. 20 cars full of people who wanted to tell me how lucky I was to have had my great-grandmother. 20 cars full of back and head pats, hair strokes and hugs. 20 cars full of "she is in a better place." 20 cars of the worst way I could spend the rest of this day. When we got inside, I said, "Mom, my stomach hurts. I'm going into Mama Dee's room to lie down." She hugged me and whispered, "Find me if you need anything, baby." Her bed smelled just like her, and it was hard to believe I would not see her in it again. I walked over to her closet, where Mama Dee and I had looked at jewelry together 1,000 times. It was all there, in 7 big boxes, sparkling, beautiful rhinestones and crystals. I opened one and found her necklaces pinned to black velvet boards, arranged by color. The first necklace was blue, so I put it on and looked in her bathroom mirror. My great-grandmother's face looked back at me, smiling and young and happy. I remembered when Daniel, Lily's son, had died years ago. Mama Dee used her jewelry to explain to me how your body may be gone, but the beautiful things about you live forever on earth, in the hearts of the people who loved you. Her perfume was on the counter. I dabbed a little on my wrists and headed out to see the family and friends who came to comfort us, knowing that Margaret Dawson Parker Duncan was walking out with me. Her tiny living room was crammed with people sitting with plates on their laps. I couldn't find my mom anywhere, but my cousin Michael spotted me and elbowed his way over. "Hi, Laney," he said. "I'm sorry about your great-grandmother." "Thank you, Michael." I scanned the hallway for an escape route and was stunned to see Chris Jackson and his dad talking to my great-aunt Sarah Ann. What were they doing here? My first thought was to run back to Mama Dee's room, except it was too late. Chris saw me and walked over with his right hand extended to shake. Well, this was awkward. I shook his hand in the most ladylike manner I could imagine and smiled, hoping my eyes weren't too red. "Thank you for returning my perfume bottle." His hands disappeared into his pockets, and he shrugged. "No problem," he muttered to the floor. "Delaney!" I heard my mother's voice shout, but couldn't see her anywhere. "Excuse me, Chris," I said. "No problem," was his eloquent reply. When I found Mom, she was in the kitchen looking very upset. "What's the matter?" I asked. "Your Grandma Ellen is not feeling very well, and your daddy went with her to the hospital. I am sure she is fine, honey, but I think we should go over there." "Just let me grab my purse," I said, and made my way through the forest of people to Mama Dee's bedroom. I was wondering what else could possibly go wrong in my world today when I banged my shin on her footboard on the way out. I had no more tears to cry, though. I guess everyone had heard about Grandma, because the group parted like the Red Sea as I entered the hall. Their faces were solemn and grave. Mrs. Wilson, my old Sunday school teacher, grabbed and hugged me. "Be brave, Delaney." "Yes, ma'am." Granddaddy had already gone to the hospital, so it was just Mom and me in the car. Neither of us said anything until we got to the parking lot. "Where is a freaking parking space?" Mom glared and spun the car around a corner. I was not about to add to her problems, so I sat still and silent as she missed a Ford truck's trailer hitch by an inch. We ended up a mile or so from the emergency room's entrance. I know no one likes hospitals, but visiting one right after a funeral is absolutely the worst. We walked into the waiting room and went straight to the information desk. The nurse said, "She is with her son and husband right now. Are you family?" "Yes, I am her daughter-in-law," Mom replied. "Please, where is she?" Mom has a tendency to look like a horse in a barn fire when she's stressed out. The nurse gave us a calm, reassuring look and told her, "Follow me. The doctor hasn't seen her yet. She is behind a curtain back here." Daddy and Granddaddy were standing shoulder to shoulder, hiding our view of Grandma's bed. Mom tapped Daddy lightly, and he turned around and swept her up in his arms. "They're waiting for an ECG update," he said. Grandma waved her hand at me from the top of the white blanket. They had her tightly tucked in. "Hi, Grandma," I said as I walked over. "Are you okay?" "Of course I am, Delaney. This is all very silly. It has been a rough day, and I was feeling faint, so your granddaddy made me come here." She stuck her tongue out at him. I figured that was a good sign. I tried to decide the best way to steer the conversation. I was still wearing Mama Dee's necklace and afraid that mentioning it would make things worse. Grandma reached over and stroked the blue crystals. She wore this to my high school graduation. She sighed and smiled gently. I hadn't seen it since. I am worried about you, baby. I know how much you miss her already. Well, that did it. I buried my head next to her neck and started to cry just as the doctor walked in. Mrs. Robinson? He asked. When she nodded, I stood up and backed away. All of your tests look good. We can keep you overnight for observation if you'd like, but I think you are okay to go home. That was it? That was the best they could do for my grandmother? Excuse me, I said. Is her ECG normal? I know he thought I was a stupid kid, but it seemed like someone should speak up. Who are you, darling? He grinned and asked. I hate it when grown-ups give you the equivalent of a head pat without even reaching over. I am her granddaughter, Delaney Robinson. I reached out a hand to shake. Well, you are mighty mature for your age, aren't you, Delaney? Yes, her ECG is fine, and so is the blood work we did. Are there any other tests you'd like to order? I couldn't tell if he was being an ass or really wanted to sound kind and professional. I shook my head no. Are you planning to be a doctor, Miss Delaney? Actually, I think I might want to be. Either that or a writer. Mama D said I would be great at either one. Is this your Mama D? Wow, wrong question. 5 pairs of eyes turned to him in unison. No, sir. My Mama D's funeral was this morning. I am so very sorry, he said to the group. I was embarrassed for him. He reached up and rubbed a bald spot on the top of his head. Well, Mrs. Robinson, I am going to release you, but I would like for you to see your regular doctor within 3 or 4 days. All right? The nurse will give you written instructions. Just take it very easy for me. He nodded at each of us and turned to leave. Delaney, I hope you do study medicine someday. I think you may have a terrific bedside manner. He flashed a grin at me. Your grandma here is doing well, but keep an eye on her for me, and call if you feel it's necessary. He handed me a business card and left. Grandma Ellen said, If all of you would kindly allow me to gather my dignity and clothes, I would like to get out of here. I could tell by her spunky tone that she was feeling like herself again. Mom offered, Ellen, let me help you. Grandma replied, No, Lisa, I am fine. All y'all need to go out in the hall. I won't fall. Grandma, you sound like Dr. Seuss. I winked at her. I used to date him, Delaney. Did you for real? I asked, wide-eyed. No, Squirt. He was much too old for me. Too goofy, too. I needed someone deeply serious like Tom Robinson. Granddaddy rolled his eyes. When we got into the hall, we saw Lily and Millard waiting on a couch across from the nurse's station. Granddaddy walked over, and Lily stood to hug him. She's all right, Lily. Mean as ever. Thank you, Jesus. Help me off this couch, old man. Millard reached out to Granddaddy. We looked up as Grandma emerged, and she shot us a look that declared no more fuss. The nurse came over to her with a wheelchair. Really? Grandma raised her eyebrows sky-high and nodded at the chair. Really? Said the nurse. Protocol. I don't mean this ugly, but your protocol should be reserved for actual patients, not folks who drop by for an hour to be poked, prodded, and humiliated. The nurse smiled at us. It was clear as the crystals around my neck that Ellen Robinson would be ordering the world to her satisfaction as usual. Be nice, Ellie, Granddaddy said. This is me being nice, Tom. You push me out of here now. With pleasure, my darling. We made our way to the circular drive-up, where Daddy was waiting with the car. Grandma and Granddaddy settled him back together, hand in hand. When we got back to Mama D's, most of the visitors had gone. Sarah Ann was sitting in the living room waiting for us. Everything all right? She glanced nervously at Grandma. It was a wasted trip, Sarah Ann. I told him. Grandma waved her hand in Granddaddy's direction, but he wouldn't listen. Delaney, a boy left this for you. Sarah Ann handed me an envelope. It was a sympathy card in blues and greens with a glittery mountain scene on front. Maybe that was supposed to look like heaven. When I opened it, I found, "You are in our thoughts and prayers." It was signed by every member of the First Baptist Youth Group, and Chris's signature was the tiniest of all, scrawled at the very bottom. I tucked it into my purse to place with the tear bottle and blue necklace deep inside my dresser. That night, I dreamed I was near an old church or castle with Mama D. She could walk and talk with me and looked fine, but somehow I knew she was very fragile and had to leave me soon. She told me, "I will always love you, Delaney. Watch over your daddy for me and take special care of him. He will need you now more than ever." When I looked up to answer, I was standing alone in a wide green field surrounded by low stone walls. Mama D was gone. Trouble, Part 1. Delaney. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in the kitchen with my mom, having our 100th argument of the morning. "I don't need a babysitter. This is stupid. I'm almost 12. I'm old enough to be hired as a babysitter, Mom." "Delaney, that's true," she replied as she shoved a pan into the dishwasher. "But your dad and I are going to be gone 2 days, and you're not staying here alone. Jamie has the flu, and Hannah has an out-of-town game, so you can't stay with either of them. You'll have fun with Caitlin." "No, I wouldn't." "Mom, she is a complete bitch to me." "Language, Delaney." "She may be over 20 now, Mom, but she's not as mature as I am. She will have her so-called fiancé over here. I wouldn't be surprised if she decided to throw a naked pool party." "That's not going to happen. Go get dressed for school. You're going to be late." "Mom, I don't see why y'all have to go now anyway. Can't you reschedule for next week? At least I could stay with a friend and not the spawn of Satan." "Enough, Delaney. Be downstairs in 15 minutes or else." She threw the plates in like sideways frisbees, a sure sign I had better cooperate. I took the steps 2 at a time. My cousin Caitlin now insisted her name was Katie. She had a nose piercing featuring a diamond booger and a tat on her hip the size of her foot, though Mom and Dad didn't know. It was Japanese for, "You never step in the same river twice." Or maybe for, "This girl is a bitch on wheels and I'm going to ink it on her because she will never know the difference." Whatever. If I was going to be stuck with her for 2 whole days and 1 very long night, I would just have to deal. If creepy Dwayne came over, though, I would be locking myself in my room. I threw the closet door back, trying to decide what would express today's mood. Black. Yep, I would go with black, head to toe. It would aggravate Mom, and I would look skinny if I sucked in my stomach. When I opened the front door, she was already in the car, gazing out the side window at nothing. Dad had left the house really early. I heard him about 5 o'clock and rolled over to go back to sleep. I threw my backpack on the floor and grabbed the seatbelt. When I glanced at Mom, I saw a wet track on her cheek. "Oh my God, Mom, what's wrong?" "Was it me? I am so sorry. I can't stand Caitlin, and you know it, but I can put up with her for a while, Mom." "Mommy, why are you crying?" I reached for her arm. "I'm sorry," I repeated. "Please tell me what's going on." "Nothing, Delaney. I am a little sad this morning. It's no big deal. I'm fine." She started the car and glanced in the rearview mirror, wiping her face with her pinky fingertip. I wasn't convinced, especially when she didn't bother to comment on my outfit. Ordinarily, she would tell me I looked goth, whatever that was, or ask if it would kill me to wear a brighter color, or at least nicer shoes. Mom was pretty good at playing fashion critic. If she didn't care today, she must really be upset. Neither of us said a word all the way to school. When we got in the drop-off line, I told her, "I'll jump out at the end so you don't have to wait." I reached for the door handle. "Delaney, don't worry. Everything is fine." She smiled the fakest smile ever and leaned over to kiss my cheek. "Have a great day, honey. You look beautiful." That did it. Now I knew something was very wrong. "Mom, are you sure? We can always have a hooky day today. You could call me in sick and we could get lunch and shop or something. No, baby. I'll see you at 3 o'clock. She put the blinker on and got ready to fight her way out of line. I love you, Delaney. I love you, too. My stomach was somewhere slightly north of my knees. There was no way this day was going to be good at all. When I thought about it, there had been lots of whispered conversation around the house lately, somewhere between losing Mama D, history homework, playing with Beastie, and trying to keep my face from getting zits. I had missed something. What was going on? Delaney? Kristen Herman was staring at me from the edge of her locker door, one eyebrow in the air. Are you okay? You look a little sick. No, I'm fine. Just thinking. Well, if you don't stop thinking and grab your stuff, you're going to be late for Blabby Abby. Miss Abby Ferguson was our English teacher. She tended to drone in a monotone for 30 minutes without pausing for breath. Thanks. She winked and tossed her long blonde hair as she hurried off to join her boyfriend, Todd. Everyone in my class had someone but me. Maybe today I would look thin enough. Miss Robinson? I managed to drop everything I was trying to take out of my locker at the assistant principal's feet, taking out her big toe with my 5-pound biology book. I'm sorry, Miss Dryden. I hurried to pick them up, trying to remember if last night's homework was in my green folder or blue one. Delaney, I need to see you in my office. Please come with me. What had I done? Yes, ma'am. I followed her clicking heels, staring at the worn wood floor and mentally recounting my recent school sins. When I sat on her nasty green nubby couch, widely regarded as the closest thing to hell at Folsom Middle School, Mrs. Dryden clasped her blue-veined hands on the desk and began. Delaney, yesterday a student reported to me that you cheated on a biology exam last week by copying your neighbor's answers. I don't know what to say, Mrs. Dryden, except that is ridiculous. I have never cheated. I don't need to. I made a 92 on that test. I did not look away from my desk. What the? This is serious, Delaney. I am going to have to call your parents for a conference. She looked into my eyes as though trying to gauge my poker face. That's fine, Mrs. Dryden. My mom should be home any time now. Mrs. Dryface nudged her red reading glasses up her nose and glanced at my student records. She punched in our phone number, each long bleep stinging my ears. She stared at me as we listened to the loud ringing together. After 8 rings, she hung up and announced, I'll try to get this resolved as soon as possible. The student who says you copied their paper will be present as well. You may head to class now, she said, handing me a yellow pass. And I would appreciate it if you would not discuss this with any fellow students. I won't, Mrs. Dryden. I gathered my dignity and headed for her door. Mrs. Dryden? Yes, Delaney? If it was Rochelle Cochran, she hates me for a bunch of reasons, but I did not copy her. Just get to first period, Miss Robinson. Yes, ma'am. My mom always went straight home after dropping me off to clean up the kitchen and fix her face. Where was she? There is a big book of quotations on our living room table. I remembered one by Dorothy Parker. What fresh hell is this? I had no way of knowing at the time, but I was going to find out what she meant in a few hours. Welcome, Miss Robinson. Miss Ferguson snatched the pass from my hand and studied it for what seemed like 5 minutes. I heard the usual giggles from the back of the room and hurried to my desk. Blabby Abby turned back to the screen she'd been pointing to when I arrived. Who can tell me the author of this poem? She scanned the room, crossing her arms. We had about 1 minute until she'd start tapping her toe. I read the words and tried to remember who wrote Daybreak in Alabama. Come on, people. We talked about this yesterday. Her impatience was legendary, and I hoped someone would raise a hand soon. Terry Lovell shyly waved his fingers in the air. Terry? Langston Hughes? Excellent, that is correct. We are going to continue our study of Alabama poetry by writing some of our own. She picked up her trademark pink chalk and walked to the blackboard. Let's start by listing all the things you can think of in our home state. Everyone sat stock still. Once more, Terry's hand shot up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?